What's going on, people? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown, here for episode 94 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast, man. Delighted to be joined, as always, by the main man in the building, Mr. Laurie from AFTV, all the way up here in the house. We got a lot to talk about today, man. We got a lot to talk about. Apologies, first of all, for being late. Slight technical issues, but we're here. We couldn't miss this. We couldn't miss the opportunity to delve in on this a bit more, man. We're going to touch in a bit more on Usyk-Joshua 2, the aftermath. We're going to be... We already did a post-fight review straight after the fight, but the dust has settled a little bit. We're going to do a little bit more, speak about it a bit more, see what you guys thought now that the dust has settled. Let me just get straight into it, man. Let's just dive straight into this. Now, we know the result. We know what happened. I'm not sure, Laurie, if you've managed to, because I know you did the watch along. I'm not sure if you've managed to watch the fight again, in your own space, or like if you had a moment to reflect on, the aftermath. Like, obviously, we'll speak about the outburst a bit later, but let's just start off with the actual fight. Now, have you watched it again? And let us know your scoring, how you thought the fight went, for those that missed it on the stream on Saturday night.
You know what? I haven't watched the fight again, but without wishing to be condescending in any way, I don't think I need to watch it again to establish who the winner was. I mean, on the night, I had Usyk a clear winner by at least 8 rounds to 4. Could even have been 9-3, but I'll give AJ 4 rounds. But he didn't win any more than that, in my opinion. We were scoring it as we went along as well. And I'm quite happy that the scores I gave at the time were a proper reflection of what I saw in the ring. So I've got no problem with the way I scored it. Now, I do have a problem with the way Glenn Feldman scored it, because how he can come up with Joshua being the winner of that fight. You've got to start questioning people like that, man. Is this gross incompetence or is it something more sinister? Because there's no way Anthony Joshua won that fight. And you have to understand that, well, Daryl, I'm a massive AJ fan and I badly wanted him to win. But the facts of the matter are he was soundly beaten.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So there can be no complaints. I mean, don't get me wrong, he gave his best. And he really did try hard in there. And he let his nuts hang, as they say. But unfortunately for AJ, his best wasn't good enough.
Mm.
And he was clearly beaten.
Let me just give a shout out. We've got quite a few guys up here in the chat. IB, Jerry, Francisco, Stefan, I see you all, man. Some comments here. IB, I agree, totally. I thought the Sky commentators were pretty dreadful. He said he had Usyk winning 7-5. He predicted AJ on points, hoped to drop him a few times, but it just seemed impossible. Usyk is generational. Totally agree with that. Stefan says, how's it going? Jerry said he had it 8-4 to Usyk. I think Laurie's going to tell some people off, man. He ain't happy. IB has said here, I honestly thought AJ gave it his all and he done better than what a lot of people scored it. AJ won at least 4 rounds. Big up Francisco in the building. Stefan said, glad the pod got pushed back 15 minutes. I was having tea. I feel 18 stone. I'm heavy. And that is definitely a reference to the outburst after the fight. So listen, man, there's some differing opinions as to how the fight, IB thought that AJ won at least 4 rounds. Jerry had it 8-4 Usyk. I had it. I didn't score it, but it felt like an 8-4 Usyk type of fight for me. I was speaking to DS earlier. He said he had it 7-5. So I've spoken to other guys. They said it was dominant again. They said 9-3. So where are you thinking? Where's your thoughts are in reference to the score and where you thought it lied? Because first of all, I just, no matter how close it was, I couldn't see it for AJ as much as I wanted him to win. I can't see where AJ got 7 rounds. I can't see it. I just can't.
Yeah, because he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's interesting you were quoting from people there, but not one of them said that they thought AJ won. Some of them may have given him 5 rounds, which I think is a little bit much. Like I said, I had it 8-4. AJ, listen, he did his best, and I commend him for that. He was much more competitive than the first fight. He got his tactics right for this fight. But you've got to be honest and say that Usyk did the cleaner work. He landed more punches. He was busier. He had better ring generalship. And he was just overall a better fighter. He's the more skilled fighter, as AJ said in the aftermath of that fight. You beat me. You're not stronger than me. You beat me with skills. And I guess he was right when he said that. Because, you know what I mean, it's boxing. It's a combat sport. It's a martial art. You don't have to be the biggest and strongest. In many ways, that is the beauty of boxing, isn't it? You don't have to be the behemoth. There is that saying, a good big man more often than not will beat a good little man. But I would argue that Usyk's skill set is on another level to AJ's. And he's found that over 24 rounds, that he's just not as good. Yeah. And then you add to that, Usyk has other attributes that make him very, very hard to beat. Like he's got world-class heart. He's got great chin. He's got great stamina. So basically what we're saying is he's the full package. The type of fighter that, let's be honest, comes along once in a while, really, isn't it? Especially at those weights where fighters' gas tanks can run down quite quick. His doesn't. You know what I mean? He could have fought for another 3-4 rounds, Usyk is. Easy, isn't he? He wasn't blowing up after the end of 12 rounds. You know what I mean? So I felt a bit sorry for AJ, though, man, because obviously he was very emotionally invested, as you saw when he had that kind of mental discombobulation afterwards. The man had a bit of an emotional and mental breakdown, which is kind of sad to see, really. You know what I mean? A lot of people are laughing at him and ridiculing him and all the rest of it. But I actually felt a bit of empathy for him, because he just come to the realization that there's nothing he can really do about it. You know what I mean? And as a result, he took it quite badly. I mean, I must admit, as much as I have sympathy for him, I do think it was poor, though, Darren, what he did, because basically what you're doing is you're detracting from Usyk's moment, aren't you? By doing it.
Yep.
So it's not just the antics, it's the fact that when Usyk should have been celebrating his win with his team and his people for his country and his nation, there was AJ rather selfishly storming out the ring, then coming back, where's the mic? You know what I mean? And then when people were approaching him for the mic, he said, no, I want to talk. And I don't know about you, but I didn't see too many people trying to take that mic off him, man.
Well, like I said, I mean, you summed it up brilliantly there, and I totally agree, man. While I sympathise with AJ, you know, this wasn't his moment. You know, It was Usyk's moment. He was victorious. We know what's going on in Ukraine right now. You know, this is a tremendous moment for him, unifying, retaining the heavyweight titles against AJ in the rematch. You know, but all of a sudden, it's all about AJ storming back to the ring, grabbing the mic. And I thought Fraser Clark summed it up brilliantly. Do you know what I mean? I thought he was very good in the studio all around. But I thought he summed it up very well, where he said that, you know, this is why you have a team for me. Like, yeah, AJ's a big guy, and when he's angry and whatever, like, it may be hard to physically grab the mic off him. But surely your entourage, what you've got them for, is to help you in moments like that, to prevent you from, you know, to protect you in situations like that. I'm not saying that AJ was, I mean, it was wrong to have the outburst, but I don't have too much, I don't feel too bad to him about it, because he's human at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? We all go through it at times, man. Like, sometimes you just got to let it out, and maybe it was the wrong place, wrong time, but that's what you've got a team for. You've got a team to just step in and say, yo, man, not here. You know what I mean? Like, let's cool off, man. Like, remember where we are, like, blah, blah, blah. That's what they're there for. And I think Fraser Clark was right, man, because he even said, look, I'm risking the wrath here. AJ's my friend. I know all of these guys, but personally, if you're going to ask me the truth, I think that someone in the team should have stepped in and just say, yo, man, not here. Like, let's take a step back for a minute. Let Usyk have his moment. And, you know, that was kind of a bit of a sideshow, really, because everybody afterwards was talking about AJ having a meltdown rather than Usyk, you know, dedicating the win to his country. I don't know if you think I'm looking into it a bit too much, but I sympathise with AJ. I'm not going to hold it against him too much. We all have our moments, but I just think it was a bit wrong, especially considering what Usyk has been through and everything, all of that.
Yeah, exactly, man. That was the winner's moment. And by AJ doing that, it can be construed that he was acting very selfishly. I'm pretty sure he didn't mean to come across as that,
Mm.
but nevertheless, that is how it looked. And like you said, it was poor form. He could, you know what I'm thinking, right? Having watched the whole meltdown again, I saw the sort of unedited version on Sky today. I'm thinking that, you know, when he walked out and he was getting booed, maybe he should have just carried on walking back to the dressing room and had his little meltdown in the dressing room. Okay, people would have said you're a sore loser, but then he could have explained it and said, look, I was so upset that I had to get away from there. I hope you'll understand. Then he could have come back and apologized. And then we wouldn't have witnessed the sort of, let's be honest, rather sort of cringeworthy scenes with him on the mic. Because that happened when he came back, didn't it? He was
Yeah.
going out, then he stopped, checked himself, and returned back to the ring. And if he'd have carried on walking back to the dressing room and just had his little meltdown in the dressing room, we wouldn't have been none the wiser. Yeah. So they would have been able to spin that a bit differently. But the fact that he turned round, went back to the ring, that was when it started to get worse. But you know what? It's easy to be wise after the event, man. Maybe Eddie Hearn, as his promoter, should have tried to take the mic off him and put his arm around him and say, look. But then the mood that AJ looked in, he didn't look like he was ready to give up that mic, bro.
Yeah.
Even Usyk at one point was saying, yeah, yeah. And he just kind of just looked, carried on, walked away
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. Well, what did you make about?
Right, I'm going to say this, right, because I've watched it a couple of times. To me, he looked in such an emotional state that I reckon if somebody tried to drag that mic off him, he probably would have assaulted them. What do you think? That he had that look on his face, man.
I saw his dad. I saw another angle when he left the ring. His dad was trying to restrain him a little bit, and he was
you
like,
saw
"Nah,
it.
get off
Get
me,
off
man."
me. Yeah.
I'm just like, "Bro, man, like."
And he said it quite aggressively, didn't he?
Yeah.
He kind of pushed his dad's hand away. And the dad obviously knows AJ well. If you notice, the dad didn't go any further, did he?
Yeah,
yeah. I shouldn't laugh, but that shows you in what mental space he was at.
Mm.
The thing that I noticed straight away is that ain't nobody was trying to get that mic off him.
No one. Mm.
And he looked so emotive and upset that it seemed to me that if somebody had to try and grab the mic, I reckon, you know what I mean, it could have got serious in there, you know what I mean, which I'm glad it didn't. But
Big
yeah,
up
listen,
everyone
man, I mean, it's, you know, a lot of people have had a lot to say. We're talking about it now. But it was a shame because he put up such a good effort, and it was.
He really did.
Enjoyed the fight, actually. I actually enjoyed the fight.
I tweeted after the fight. Big up IB. Let me read this actually. He says here, Laurie, you make a good point that someone should have took the mic off him. I think the problem is though his entourage seemed like yes men, and that's a big issue. His corner was telling him he was winning, which Robert Garcia was.
Yeah, there's been a lot of fallout with regards to the Robert Garcia situation. Some people are saying that he didn't make enough difference, that they were giving him the wrong advice in the corner, rather similar to the first fight. I actually thought that Robert Garcia, in terms of, I didn't get a chance to listen to the advice in the corner, but from what I saw, it seemed like the tactics were more suited this time than they were last time. And he was trying to go to the body. He was trying to plant his foot in the middle of the ring and try and push Usyk back. But you see, the problem that he had is that his feet are a lot slower than Usyk's. So Usyk was happy to give up the ground, wasn't he? But he was constantly moving, shifting, using his head, creating angles. And as I said on your show after the fight, the thing that struck me about Usyk in this fight, and I'm pretty sure he's been like that in most of his fights, but particularly so for this fight, how creative he is with his hands. Like he will throw punches and then at the last minute, he will, you know what I mean, create a different angle or turn his hand a different way. You know what I mean? He's able to manipulate his combinations in a way that very few fighters I've seen can do that. You know what I mean? Even throughout history. So he is almost like a once in a lifetime talent, really, Usyk. That's how good the opponent is. So there's no real shame in losing. Everybody looks at the two of them I've spoken to a few people and they seem to be of this mindset that, yeah, just because AJ's 4 or 5 inches taller and he's the bigger, stronger looking guy with the muscles, that it's going to be light work. And I'm saying, no, that's not how combat sports work. I mean, we've all seen the Bruce Lee films. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
Bruce Lee was taking on guys twice the size of him, but because of his nimbleness and his speed and stuff like that, he was able to make fools out of those guys. And that's a kind of similar thing to what Usyk does, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What
So,
about this moment? What about this moment as well? Sorry to go back to the outburst. I know we're talking about the fight, but after the fight, as IB is saying here, you know, he was walking back towards the dressing room, and that American guy, he basically, I shouldn't laugh, man. The old guy, he was like, "Look, way to keep it professional, man." And then AJ was like, "What? Who are you talking to, man? Who are you talking to?"
yeah.
And then the American man was like, "Yo, man, I was only, you know what I mean? I was only like, I was just giving him advice, man." But yeah,
He
I mean,
was, but you know what it is, right? I don't think that was called for either. I mean, don't get me wrong, AJ overreacted, but you could see the guy's upset. He stormed off out the ring, and then you're there uttering that, keep it I mean,
way
come
to
on.
keep it
You're
professional, man.
asking for trouble, really, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, it's like
Just
you're
keep your
poking a
mouth shut.
bear, innit?
I think maybe he just fancied getting himself in the spotlight. But I just thought he was equally as bad as AJ. Why are you saying that for? You could see the guy's, you know what I mean, on the verge of having a complete mental and emotional breakdown. You're telling him to keep it professional. Come on, bro.
Yeah,
That's a
Ash
very
agrees.
silly thing to do. You're antagonizing the man.
Ash agrees with you here. He's like, "Nah, that was a smart ass comment. Don't say that to a man who's fuming."
Yeah. He's fuming. He's upset. He's emotional. He's all of the above. He's walking past you. You don't know this man, right? And
Yeah,
then you're telling, yeah, keep it professional, man. That's not a good look, bro. That's the kind of comment that can, you know what I mean, get your ass whooped. When he, and you know what I mean, just keep it moving, let him go. And if you do feel that way, keep the comment to yourself.
you see his girlfriend next to him, man. She was like, "Oh man, I hope AJ don't take it out on him, man." Like, but yeah, it was. Listen, man. All jokes aside, I get it. Do you know what I mean? And AJ's been scrutinized a lot. He's been scrutinized his whole career. But after that night, of course, you know, I saw a lot of people taking shots, and I get it. I was saying, look, this is wrong. But then when you sit down and think about it, man, I thought he really let it out at the presser. I thought Eddie Hearn really covered his back. Do you know what I mean? So I get it. You all have moments of madness at times. Nobody's perfect. We're all human at the end of the day. So yeah, it was wrong. We've acknowledged that already. Usyk seems to have, you know, accepted the apology. AJ released a statement afterwards apologizing. Let's move on now. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no point holding him to the fire now. I mean, we've done that already. Let's move on. What's next for him? Will Robert Garcia be in the corner? Because Francisco was saying here, what were his instructions? I didn't hear it. I agree that the tactics were right, but I'm usually not that impressed by his in-fight instructions. Well, one thing that Robert Garcia said that was very concerning was that AJ was winning after 3 rounds. And I didn't see that. And I was thinking, is this just to get his confidence up? Or does he really believe that AJ is winning? There was also a bit of conflict in the corner there with, you know, Fernandez at times speaking, Robert Garcia speaking. And Laurie, you may not have heard it because you was at the watch along. But I think for me, Robert Garcia, if he is to be the man going forward, he needs to be the clear voice. I mean, he's the main trainer, man. He's got a wealth of experience more than Angel Fernandez. He should be the one in the middle telling AJ, not hearing from 2 guys separately. It should be him. He's trained former world champions. He's a former world champion himself. And I just don't like it when you have more than one voice in the corner. Doesn't
But
normally
what
work.
was he appointed, Garcia I'm talking about, as the head trainer? Maybe not. We don't really know that, do we? I mean, we know he was brought on board, but was he appointed as head trainer? I mean, he might have been. I've seen it in several instances in the past with fighters where they bring on another coach to give advice and to help them prepare. But in the actual corner, the head trainer will assume those duties. So I'll be keen to learn who was given that head trainer role.
Yeah. Well,
And it could well be that it was Angel Fernandez who's like the head coach, and Robert Garcia was brought in to provide his professional input.
I thought that, keeping that aside, I thought AJ did what he could, man. I mean, like, yeah, earlier on, I thought maybe, you know what, he could probably let his hands go a bit more, earlier on. He did try, but it's easy for us to just sit on the side and say, oh man, let your hands go, wing at him. Chisora did it, blah, blah, blah. AJ don't fight nothing like Derek Chisora. And,
No.
you know, it's easy for us to say when Usyk's at his sharpest, round 1, 2, and 3, you're going to go in there and wing, let your hands go, get caught, flush. So I get it why he didn't do it. But, maybe he could have asserted his authority a bit more. But like I said, that's easy for us to say. I thought AJ did what he could, man. I mean, at the end of the day, Usyk's just, like you said, a generational talent, a masterful boxer, and he's also got a very good chin at heavyweight.
Yeah.
He got caught with some solid shots from AJ, and while he was hurt in the 9th, other than that, he wasn't really buzzed that much, and he took some solid shots.
No,
so AJ did what he could, man. I don't know how much more he could have done. It's not like him to bull rush someone like that. So yeah, he was switched on. He tried, but for me, it just wasn't enough to beat a generational talent like Usyk. Big up YK22 in the building. I see you, bro. IB has said here, Angel Fernandez is no different from Ben Davidson. No real boxing experience. YK22 says, hi guys, how you doing? Any updates on the donations and super chats? I want to support my favorite channel. Big up, man. Respect. I'll give you an update on that, YK22. In order for super chats to be enabled on this channel, you need over 1,000 subs. I've got that. I've got over 1,000 subs. But you also need 4,000 watch hours over the last year. And I think my watch hours are 3,400 and something. So I'm nearly there. But that's pretty much how you qualify for super chats on the channel. So we'll get there. But you being here is enough. Do you know what I mean? It's not always all about that. But we're here, man. We ain't going anywhere either. Lloyd, did you want to add to AJ's tactics on the fight?
Yeah, I see Robert Garcia getting a bit of stick. People saying he was no different from Rob McCracken. I don't think that is the case. I think it was a much better performance. It wasn't just better; it was considerably better. The tactics were more on point. He did try to execute the tactics. The problem he had, though, is that he's up against one of the best fighters in the world right now. You know what I mean? And I think I was saying it to you and Shane and one or two other people. The way Usyk was boxing him in that fight on Saturday reminded me of the Floyd era, where people would say, right, the way to beat Floyd is to pressure him. Remember that? Remember that narrative? You've got to throw more punches. You've got to get closer. And then you get in there, man, and the guy's boxed your ears off and you don't know how it happened. You know what I mean? He's just too good. And I'm kind of putting Usyk, I'm not saying he's as good as Floyd, but he's kind of in that same type of phenomenon, isn't he? Really. In that he just beats them quite easily, bro. He did it to Tony Bellew. You know what I mean? He's done it to countless fighters. You know what I mean? And then the thing I said about Usyk that impresses me as well is that when he does come under pressure, he's able to raise his game. So in that fight on Saturday, for example, AJ had a couple of good rounds back to back. And clearly what happened is when Usyk went back to the corner, they said, listen, man, you got to step it up. You're allowing this guy to get back into the fight. So then what happens? He comes back and he wrests away the initiative once more. And then you saw it in the 10th round of that fight.
A pivotal moment.
The 9th round, AJ had a great round. Almost, I'm thinking, wow, could we be on the verge of a possible stoppage here? The 10th round comes around and it's a completely different fight. I mean, I know AJ would have been gassed. He'd thrown a lot of punches. He's a big guy, you know what I mean? So obviously his gas tank ran down a little bit. But even so, the way Usyk came back at him, he didn't just try and survive in that 10th round, did he? He actually put it on AJ a bit.
No, he put it on him.
Yeah,
I think he landed almost the most punches of the fight in that round.
Yeah. So that was a clear statement of intent by Usyk that he was coming to wrest back the initiative. And he did it in dramatic fashion. And in fact, I think you will agree with me, Daryl, after that great 9th round that AJ had, he never won a round after that.
No.
So he lost round 10 big, but he also lost round 11 and 12. And talking of round 12, do you know that Glenn Feldman actually gave AJ the 12th round? Now that is ridiculous, bro. How could you score a fight and give AJ that round? He clearly lost that round. So you have to ask yourself, man, is that, like I said, is that gross incompetence or is this something a bit more sinister?
Well, whatever it is, it requires investigation because there's just no, like, what are you looking at? Like, what are you like? Listen, I don't understand that at all. That was very, very, very poor, but nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen because in the record books that will go down as a split decision loss for AJ, but we all know it was a unanimous decision win for Usyk.
Yeah,
because that should not have been a split decision. So it's actually making AJ look in that sense a little bit better than he did. But I'm going to say this. I know we've spoken about the aftermath and the meltdown and so forth. I am a little bit worried for AJ. I mean, listen, I don't think he should retire. I don't think he took a beating. It wasn't that type of fight. He was soundly outboxed, but he wasn't beaten up and knocked down and all the rest of it. He didn't suffer like the way Dillian did in his last fight and the way Wilder was. And so he still has a future in the heavyweight division. But I am slightly worried because the mental breakdown, whilst I do kind of understand how upset he would have been, I'm still a little bit concerned, man, that he did that. You know what I mean? In front of everyone like that. It makes me wonder what's going through his mind on a day-to-day basis. He'd obviously put himself under so much pressure to win that fight. And that meltdown afterwards showed how much pressure. And he said words to the effect that I felt like I was fighting two people, Usyk and the pressure that's on me, and I lost both. You know what I mean? So he's in quite a bad place mentally. He's going to need, this is where his team are really going to have to rally around that kid, man. They're going to have to really work on him because, and this is something I said on Saturday night on the watch along, as big and strong and powerful as AJ is, there's no doubt in my mind that he has a fragile psyche. If not before, then definitely now. He definitely has a fragile psyche. And you saw that even before this fight with some of the incidents he's been involved with, the students and that, where he chased them up into. I mean, don't get me wrong. At the time, I thought, yeah, fair enough. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Like how he's coping with the criticism and people telling him, "Oh, you're not that good," and you know what I mean.
What it tells me,
getting to him a little bit.
What it tells me is that, you know, maybe he cares too much about what people think about him.
Yeah, that's what
that's been a bit detrimental. I mean, look, I have to say he is one of the most scrutinized fighters out there today. You know what I mean? He reached superstardom too quickly. You know, he was thrust into the limelight when the IBF belt. There was an opportunity to grab that against an opponent like Charles Martin, who's not world level. He won that belt, and then once you win the belt, there's no going back. It was stadium fight after stadium fight, sold out. Do you know what I mean? He was taking on all these tough challenges. He didn't really have that time to really, you know, go through it. Like, you know how Fury did. Do you know what I mean? How Fury had the Cunninghams and those type of fights along the way before he fought Klitschko. AJ was kind of thrust into it very early. Do you know what I mean? And he's not a supernatural like a Usyk or even like a Fury, who's a naturally fighting man. But with AJ, I think that the pressure told, you know, he was playing a PR image that we know is not really him. Do you know what I mean? But he tried to make a positive difference and it did work. You know, without him, you know, boxing wouldn't be where it is in the UK without him. But he was being someone that he probably wasn't always known to be. And the pressure told, man. I mean, like, we knew the scrutiny going into this. Even some of our own journalists, the like of Colin Hart, Gareth A. Davis, those type of guys, it felt like a lot of people were against him. Do you know what I mean? When really you're supposed to rally behind the man. And I feel like with all of that attention, all of that scrutiny, it probably got to him because he cares what people think. He clearly does.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, actually. Yeah, it's almost like he's fighting for his respect, isn't it? It's not so much... Because he even said words to that effect. He said something about the belts didn't mean so much to him. It was the fight itself. So I think in his mind, he's carrying around demons of people disrespecting him. They think he was a fighter that was given everything, gold medal winner. Some people said he didn't even win that fight, and you know what I mean. And those little negativities can gnaw away at you if you're not strong psychologically. I don't think he's the strongest psychologically, to be honest. I think he takes criticism to heart. And I think he feels that he's fighting for his respect. And then when he got beaten on Saturday, the emotions just poured out of him. He thought, nah, man, not again. You know what I mean? I've put so much into this. I've spent so much on my training camp. I've got a new trainer in, you know what I mean? I tried the different fighting style. I even changed my attire from the white to the black. Everything was, you know what I mean? And it still didn't work. He's like, where do I go from here? What am I going to do? But I'm here to tell AJ that, listen, man, console yourself with the fact, not the thought, the fact that you were beaten by an all-time great on Saturday. I really do mean that as well. All-time great fighter in Usyk. Yeah. There's not going to be too many Usyks running around in the heavyweight division. You know what I mean? On the undercard of that fight on Saturday, we saw Filip Hrgović against Leo Yang. Now, Hrgović was supposed to be the next coming in. He's supposed to be in that next crop of guys coming up. And we saw he looked very beatable by 39-year-old Yang. And I was looking at those two on Saturday, Daryl, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me when I say this. AJ beats both of those guys. I mean, AJ's already beaten Zhang in the Olympics. But I would put him in with Hrgović tomorrow, based on what I saw on Saturday. And there's a lot of fights out there for him. People are talking about Dillian and one or two other people. I think he definitely beats Dillian again. If he can get his mind right, of course. If this fight on Saturday hasn't taken too much out of him emotionally or mentally, because I don't think physically it took too much out of him. Neither fighter was that banged up. And it wasn't like a particularly grueling rock'em sock'em fight, was it? It was a hard fight. You know what I mean? Blows were landed, but I don't think it was one of those fights where you need 6 months off after it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a Michael Conlan type situation. You know what I mean? So,
well, they're talking about getting him back in the ring in November. So do you think that's a good idea? Because I saw IB's comment earlier. He said, what would you like to see next for AJ? Well, they're talking about getting him in by the end of the year. Whereas
I
I'm
think that
seeing
might
other
be a
people
good
say,
idea. I think that might be. He might need, it's a bit like when you fall off the bike. They say you need to get back on it as soon as possible to get confidence back. You know what I mean? He might need to get back in there against a nondescript opponent. No, nothing too heavy. You know what I
I
mean?
saw Stefan earlier said Otto Wallin. And I've seen a few suggest Otto Wallin.
Otto
I
Wallin
think
could be a
Dillian
bit
White,
tricky.
I mean, that would be, yeah, that would sell. But for me, I don't know if this sounds bad, and I'm not being disrespectful, but for me, I think AJ, if he performed like how he did as his last fight, I think he takes Dillian out maybe even earlier. I don't even want to sound disrespectful.
Well, you know my thoughts on Dillian, man. I've said it countless times. To me, Dillian's a shot fighter. Now, you could put him in with AJ and bill it as the two of them coming off losses. Which one wins to get their career back on track? I guess you can sell it. You know what boxing's like, man. You can sell pretty much anything with the right promoters. You know what I mean? Let's face it, the boxing public are fairly gullible. But the people who really know the sport, I'm not sure if they want to see that fight because Dillian is clearly shot. But if they are creative, they can come up with an opponent that AJ, A, can beat and B, look good against. I'm not sure if Otto Wallin's the guy, though, really.
I think
He
it
might
makes
have a bit
sense.
too much movement.
Maybe, but, you know, take it back to the O2 rather than Wembley and all that. Just have that at the O2. Otto Wallin, do you know what I mean? Like, there's no AJ's beaten him before. Do you know what I mean? He's beaten him, hasn't he? They sparred together, haven't they? One of the two. But IA saying no more southpaws. Let AJ breathe. Give him Dillian White.
I can see why people mention Dillian White because they've got history. It's a British clash. The two of them are coming off losses. They both want to get their career back on track. But me personally, I'm not so sure about that fight, man. Because like I said, I'm pretty sure Dillian's spent. But like I said, if they are creative, they could come up with an opponent that makes sense, you know what I mean? And one that AJ can look good against in winning. I mean, let's face it, that's the art of matchmaking, isn't it? To make your guy look good and win at the same time.
Let me just say as well, I like Zhang a lot. Do you know what I mean? I do. I'm not saying he should be AJ's next opponent, but I do like Zhang, and I thought he could have got the win over Hrgovic the other night, who had very weird body language throughout. But we'll talk about that later on.
Well, I thought that fight was very close. It could have gone either way. Personally, I thought Hrgovic may have nicked it by a round, but some people are saying it was robbery. I don't think it was a robbery.
I don't think it was robbery, nah.
But what I didn't like about that fight, it was just so predictable that Hrgovic was going to win in it. You just knew that we're never going to let Zhang win that fight because Hrgovic is the anointed guy in that situation. But like I said, AJ versus Hrgovic, I'd watch that, and I think AJ definitely beat him.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. Well, what about Usyk? You know, we know what. There's no point saying what do we think's next. We all know what needs to be next. Usyk has basically said it in his post-fight interview that if I don't get Fury next, I'm as good as gone as well. So Fury came out, dropped a video.
I don't believe that either, by the way. I don't believe that.
I can see it. You know, everything that's going on right now. You know, you've been undisputed cruiserweight champion, you're unified heavyweight champion. If you don't get the shot at undisputed, who's he really motivated to fight other than Fury? Do you know what I mean?
You could say who he's really motivated to fight, but come on, if you're Usyk, you're on top of the world, man. You know what I mean? There's a lot of money to be made, and there's a lot of national pride as well. Given what that country's going through, to have the heavyweight champion of the world is a big thing. Let's be honest.
I agree with Ash here. I agree with Ash. He's 35 years old. He ain't going to be hanging around making He's done all that. It's Fury or bust.
He could beat Hrgovic quite comfortably, though, at the end of the day.
Do you think that fight with Fury happens? Who, like I said, released a video on Saturday night saying that, you know, AJ was out of his depth. He said that the warlords are calling Fury to come and relieve the belts of Usyk and bring them back to England. Said it's going to be expensive. Listen, we need to see it, but will we?
Because what we do know is that Tyson Fury's not retired. By the way, whilst we're talking of Tyson Fury, it's only right that we should send our condolences. We now know that he had a family member stabbed to death at the weekend in Manchester. It's a real shame. I mean, I'm on the record as saying that I'm not a big fan of Fury outside the ring. But listen, when tragedy befalls you in that way, then it's only right that we show the correct level of empathy. So, yeah, condolences to Tyson Fury and the family over that loss they suffered at the weekend. Very tragic. But in terms of, to go back to the boxing, listen, we all know that Tyson Fury is not retired. It's a joke that people even talking about it like retirement, because he's not giving up the belts. He's giving up the Ring Magazine belt. Come on. So that tells you everything. He is not going to retire. And I did say last week, though, that if Usyk wins, that would be the narrative that Tyson Fury starts to push. If you want me to come out of retirement to beat him, you got to give me the money and this and that. Because I reckon, this is just my own personal thoughts, Fury was hoping that AJ might win, set up that big British fight.
Of course.
Yeah. But he would also have known, because he's not stupid, call him what you want, but he's not stupid. He would have known that it was more likely that Usyk was going to win. So his plan B will be to say, listen, man, I'm retired, but if you want, I'll come out of retirement, you got to give me blah, blah, blah. And I will come and rescue the belts from the internet. You know what I mean? That's going to be the narrative. But I'll tell you something, man, and I know it'll be interesting to hear what some of your viewers and contributors think, but I've seen Usyk, man, well, all of his recent fights. Seen him now 4 times as a heavyweight, is it? Chaz Witherspoon, Chisora, and the 2 Joshua.
AJ.
And each time he's looking good, man. And he's filling into the weight more. And he's holding that weight nice. And I'm saying to you on this show that I think he has the capabilities in which to beat Tyson Fury. I'm not saying he would do. I would certainly have Fury as favourite, but I would not rule Usyk out. Trust me. because he's so skilled that if anyone out there can beat Fury, it's probably him right now.
Yeah, I'd say, looking at some of the comments here, Obes is saying, I can't stand him, but he beats Usyk that we saw on Saturday. Owen Robertson, big up Owen Robertson. He says here, Fury obliterates Usyk, end of. We had W12 MC, big up bro. He said here, Usyk beats Fury. So, you know, it's a bit of conflict there in the comments there. You know what I mean? Asher said here, Usyk Fury in terms of skill, size is the only reason it's competitive, and it is a huge size difference. Fury is a big 6'9" heavyweight who has tremendous movement and ability. Regardless of what people say about him, in the ring, the guy can fight. He's got natural fighting heart. We saw him get put down by Wilder in that first fight. He gets back up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, he had the bad performance against Wallin, but against someone like Usyk, he'll recognize the threat. And he will use his size. Sugar Hill will be, you know, I favor him over Usyk slightly, but with Usyk's movement, skills, and capabilities, you know, it makes it's not cut and dry as to who wins that for sure. I have Usyk,
But will
I
it
have
be
Fury,
Sugar Hill?
sorry,
Will
like
it be
you,
RKO?
but it's not cut and dry.
No, not at all. And you can see there as well that Usyk wants to fight. He's actually calling Fury out. And I'm always quite interested to see when fighters call other fighters out. It's normally because they genuinely think that they can beat somebody. You know what I mean?
Mm.
The fact that you've now got Usyk actively calling Fury out suggests to me that he's confident that he can beat Fury. And don't forget, we're not talking about somebody here like an Adrian Broner or a lot of these fighters that are just full of hot air. You're talking about Usyk, who is a superb fighter, won everything he's ever contested, supremely confident in his own ability, and he's actually calling Fury out. That tells me a lot, you know, trust me. That means he studied Fury and he feels that his skill set will prevail against Tyson Fury. And I want to see that fight, man. I mean, like you said, Daryl, Fury is many things outside the ring, but even people like myself who are not keen on him outside the ring, I've got to admit that inside the ring, you cannot say anything other than good things.
Yeah.
However, no man is invincible. Tyson Fury's nearly been beaten already, and Usyk is on such a good run of form right now, so confident that I think that is a very, very good fight to watch.
Yeah.
One that I think that can win. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I've studied the man's style. I've seen what he does. And I think, yes, the size disparity will be an issue. But if anyone can overcome that issue, though, with his footwork, his skill, his creativity in attack, if he's focused and zoned in, he's going to take rounds off Fury. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Mm.
Can he take 7 rounds off Fury, though? That's the problem, because he's not going to knock Fury out. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But can he take 7 rounds off Tyson Fury? I would argue, yes, he can.
The thought of it sounds very difficult, though, don't it?
Yeah.
7 rounds off Fury at probably Wembley. Do you know what I mean? We'll see.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of tactics Tyson Fury adopts, because let's be honest, man, Tyson Fury by nature is a counterpuncher, isn't he? I mean, I know he's adopted a more aggressive style in recent times, whereby he's marching forward, but that was against Wilder, who, like I said, we all know, Wilder is a limited boxer with a massive right hand. Usyk is a boxer tricks. It's a different thing. And Tyson Fury, to his credit, has gone on the record and been honest and said, look, I struggle with smaller guys. He's actually said that. I actually watched the interviews, so I know what I'm talking about. He said, I struggle with guys shorter than me. And if you look at some of his career performances, the least impressive ones have come against guys like that, smaller guys who can move a little bit. Now, if you put Alexander Usyk in the mix, a guy with excellent footwork, head movement, southpaw, you know what I mean? Great engine, great gas tank, plenty of heart, punches hard enough to keep you honest. Then, you know what I mean? It could be a nightmare for Fury to walk down. I mean, what tactics is Fury going to adopt for that fight? Is he going to come forward, try and take
Well, I
Usyk's
think we
head
know
off?
what he's got. He's got to use his size, and like someone said earlier, hug him to just make it a horrible fight to watch. Who
Yeah, but we
cares
said
what
that
we
about
think?
AJ,
You
and
just
AJ
got to
tried
win.
that and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, but Fury's a much better at using his size than AJ. Do you know what I mean? Big up Daniel White in the building. He says here, is Usyk Fury a closer fight than Usyk AJ or about the same? We thought Usyk was a 60-40 favorite over AJ. Well, yeah, for sure. I've got it more Fury 60-40 than I've got Fury 60-40 over Usyk. I don't know about you, Laurie.
Yeah, I would have to say that. Yeah. But however, just because we've got it like that doesn't mean to say it's going to pan out that way. You know what I mean? So
Owen Robertson says here, are people forgetting that Fury is a boxing master too? He's got size, he's got speed, and he's got knockout power as well. Forget Usyk, it's no contest, but fair play to him.
I'll tell you a story about Alexander Usyk. Some of your viewers may already know, so forgive me if they do know already. But this apparently is a true story. Years ago, when Alexander Usyk was a cruiserweight, he got called into sparring camp with Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah, Klitschko. That was when he was still champion of the world, as you can imagine, a number of years back. And so the story goes that they had to get Usyk out the camp because apparently he was embarrassing Vladimir. Yeah,
I heard that.
when he was a cruiserweight. Now Vladimir Klitschko is an inch or so taller than AJ. Yeah, 6'7". So what I'm saying basically is Usyk can fight against big guys. He's done it with AJ a couple of times, as we've seen. Apparently manhandled, or if not manhandled, definitely got the better of Klitschko in sparring, so much so that they sent him home. That's what I heard. And I've heard that from a few people. This was even before Usyk had stepped up to heavyweight. So I say that to say this. This shows you how good this guy is. It ain't no one-off, you know what I mean? He is a supremely talented fighter and he can adapt. He can fight guys smaller than him. He can fight guys the same size as him. And he can fight guys that are a lot taller than him. And he beats them all.
Here's a question from Ash here. And I'd like to get your opinion on this because Usyk was my pound for pound number one. He's been pound for pound for a while now, even before last weekend, probably even before Canelo lost. But yeah, I know who your pound for pound number one is or was. Has that changed? I know you don't really look into that too much, but has that changed with Usyk repeating the victory over AJ? Do you now have him as number one, or is it still Terence Crawford for you? For me,
He's definitely
it's got to be Usyk.
5.
For me, it is. I just don't think Crawford's active enough to have him over Usyk.
Yeah, you could be right in that, but I'm going for Crawford, man. Crawford's 3 weight classes, cleaned up at junior welterweight. But yeah, you're right. He's not as active as he should be. So you could easily make the case for Usyk, to be honest. But I would still say Crawford, man, because his body of work, he's won titles at lightweight, light welterweight, which he was undisputed, and now welterweight. He's won all his fights at welterweight by stoppage. We're waiting to see what happens with the Errol Spence fight. So yeah, he would still be my number one. But listen, Usyk is going to be on everyone's pound for pound list, I'm sure. And he's going to be pretty much in everyone's top 5, I would have thought, too.
Yeah. So just on Fury then, big up Owen Robertson as well. I see you, man. I know you like Fury. I see him. But Fury, unfortunate, very unfortunate, like you said. Let me just reiterate what you said there. Fury said that he lost a cousin to knife violence, I believe it was. Terrible. And it's sorry to hear that. I just don't know where he's at, though, because 1 minute he dropped that video yesterday, perfectly timed. Everybody got excited. You got people, visualizing them two in the ring, him and Usyk. You saw Frank Warren come out and say, there's no reason why that can't happen. Both camps get on very well. There's no issues with regards to making that. There's no roadblocks in the way of making that fight happen. Are you of the opinion that that fight needs to happen for us to know who is the real number one at heavyweight? Or are we just saying, look, Fury is the number one? Or like, how are we looking at this? Like, are we saying that Fury and Usyk need to fight? If they don't fight each other, then neither of them can go down and say they're the best of this generation? Or do they have to fight for us to really, get that underlined?
I think the way Usyk's beaten Joshua both times is that he's a serious forerunner for the best heavyweight in the world. And I don't think that Tyson Fury can not fight Usyk and walk away saying, hands down, I'm the best. You know what I mean? Because I think that Usyk presents some serious problems for Fury. And it's a fight that we need to see. So if they don't fight, especially now that you're in a situation where Usyk is actively calling Fury out, that fight has to happen. Yeah. Because if it doesn't happen, man, we're going to feel slightly cheated, aren't we? You're going to think, come on, man. You know what I mean? Like your best wins are against Wilder and an aging Vladimir Klitschko. Come on. You know what I mean? You've got a serious opponent out there that's calling you out, that's unbeaten, that's beaten AJ, who was one of the top heavyweights in the world, beating him quite convincingly on both occasions. That's a natural fight for you to take, man. And if you don't take it, people are going to be disappointed. Let's be honest. And they're not going to be disappointed in Usyk because he, you can see, genuinely wants that fight now.
Daniel Chambers here, just going back to his comment. He said if Crawford beats Spence, then you could probably debate him and Usyk as number one pound for pound, so to speak. That's just his opinion, though. So yeah, hopefully we do get that fight towards the end of the year.
Crawford has 6 or 7 defenses at welterweight, all by stoppage. Usyk has 1 defense of his heavyweight title that he beat against the same guy that he won it from. You know what I mean? Crawford's been around a long time, man. He's reigned in 3 different weight classes, and no one's beaten him yet. No one's really come close to beating him, have they? Let's be honest. No. So it's up in the air, but I would still stay with Crawford, especially if he beats Spence. But if Usyk beats Fury, then probably look at it again and have to say Usyk. If it's a big if, because like I said, despite what I say about Fury, I would make him favourite in that fight.
Let's have a quick roundup of the card before we go. Now, apologies, but I did miss some of the earlier fights, so I can weigh in a bit on the Zhang and Hrgovic fight, and of course the Callum Smith fight against Bauderlique. Now, Callum Smith, man, let me just say this before we round it up and leave. Callum Smith, man, are we sleeping on him at light heavyweight? Are we forgetting what he did at super middle? Because he had another highlight reel knockout against Bauderlique. Bauderlique came to fight, and I think Sky undersold him a little bit because Bauderlique, you correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the chat will correct me, but wasn't he a medalist at the Olympics, or was it the World Championships? So he's not no scrub. But that fight, man, he came to win. He caught Callum Smith a couple of times. But again, another highlight reel knockout from Callum Smith. He's a problem at light heavyweight. If we can just get him active enough, there are some guys out there. Imagine him against Yard.
That's what I was going to say. He's kind of flown under the radar a little bit at light heavyweight, and then he got that devastating highlight reel knockout against Lenin Castillo, when basically he rendered the guy unconscious, and the guy was basically having a seizure in the ring. Now he's gone on with a very capable opponent, and like you said, he's got another highlight reel knockout there. So he means business at this weight division. Looking at Callum Smith as a light heavyweight, you wonder how the hell did he ever make super middle?
Yeah,
it's big even for light heavy.
Yeah,
he's got a very good coach, Buddy McGurk's one of the best coaches in boxing. So he's moving in the right direction, man. And like I said, don't sleep on him because that division is stacked, both internationally and domestically. So
sorry.
That you could see him in with Boatsi, maybe not Callum Johnson because they share the same. Well, actually, not now.
Not now, no.
Trainer now.
But Ash says it here. Yeah, Ash, big up, bro. Yeah, he said Bauderlique, Olympic bronze medalist and current European champion. He's legit. If Boatsi took him out like that, you know what I mean? What would people be saying? So look, man, Callum Smith, he's a problem, and I just hope he's active and gets the fight.
Well, and let's be honest, he was a man who ended George Groves' career, knocked George Groves out, didn't he?
Yeah.
Some people said he made George Groves quit, which is, let's be honest, man, that's not an easy thing to do because George Groves is a real warrior. But when with those body shots, man, George didn't seem to want to fight on, and who can blame him? But listen, yeah, he's a real one, man. Definitely, he's to be a force to be reckoned with at light heavyweight. He's definitely in the mix, both domestically and internationally.
Big up Owen Robertson here, man. Thank you, man. He says here, guys, I've never seen this channel, but can I just say you are very fair and honest. So much respect to knowledgeable boxing fans from an old ex-boxer. Magic, top drawer. Good to see you here, Owen, man. I need to check out your box rec as well. If you're a former boxer, but thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I'm sure you do as well, Laurie.
Yeah. Likewise, myself, man. It's always nice to get guys on here that used to box because we've both boxed. And listen, I was an amateur. I was a decent amateur, but I wasn't like a top amateur or anything like that. But I know what it's like to get in there, man. So these guys have my full respect. A lot of the times, and myself and you and Darryl have spoken about this, one of the things I don't like about boxing media is that people are very quick to trash fighters, call them bums, and make all sorts of disingenuous comments about them and show a real lack of understanding and cast them to one side after a loss. Or I just speak from somebody that's participated in the sport, that's been involved in the sport for a long time. I know people, even to this day, that are active fighters, friends of mine, associates of mine, people still in the game. So I've got my ear close to the ground. I still know what goes on a lot of the time. And I have a deep respect for the sport and the people who participate in it. But some of these channels, man, I'm not going to name any of them, but you know who they are. They will talk about boxers like they're a piece of trash. They lose one fight. Oh, he's a bum. Get him out of here. And that's crass, bro. And you'll never see me or you do that. So that's one thing about this channel. We keep it legit, as Owen said. So, yeah, respect is due. Always.
Francisco brings up a very good point here, which we need to touch on quickly. Dimitri Bivol and Gilberto Ramirez, Zerdo has been confirmed for November. We saw that come through yesterday. Very good fight. That's going to be in the UAE, that fight. Abu Dhabi, I believe it is. But listen, man, what matters is the fight is on.
Yeah, listen, man, I like that fight. I like that fight. It's a very competitive fight. Apparently, the two of them have sparred before. And if you listen to Zerdo, he thinks that he got the better of it. You know what I mean? And he's been calling for this fight. So he's got what he's asked for. You know what I mean? And you know what they say, what you ask for, you get it. Do you really want it? So we'll see. Bivol's on a high right now, obviously, after the Canelo win. So, yeah, man, bring it on. Great fight. At this moment, I wouldn't care to say, give an opinion as to who wins that fight. I would have to really sit down and analyze it. But so that tells you what a competitive fight it is. The fact that I can't automatically pick a winner.
Yeah. Have to agree with Daniel Chambers here. I edge Bivol slightly, but it's a great fight, man. Lastly, before you go, was there anything else on the undercard that you wanted to speak on? I know Zhang Hergovich, we touched on that briefly. Callum Smith. There was the Badu Jack fight, which I didn't see, but apparently that was daylight robbery. Was anything? I mean, the heavyweight fight, Zhang and Hergovich. I think the main thing from Hergovich and Zhang was that Hergovich did not appear to be the boogeyman many of us thought he might be.
I'm sure Hergovich will have an excuse or a reason as to why he didn't perform up to the levels we expected. But I must say, man, he did look a bit flat-footed, a bit ponderous. I will give him this, though. He showed a lot of heart, man, because after those first 5 or 6 rounds, I thought Zhang was going to get him out of there.
He pieced him up.
Clean, bro. Clean. And Zhang is a big dude. Zhang ain't no, you know what I mean, lily flower. Zhang is a big dude, and he was teeing off on him. I was actually quite impressed with Zhang. Actually.
I like Zhang a lot. Yeah. I like him a lot.
An exciting guy to watch because he lets his hand go, man. You know what I mean?
I want to
but
see
you have
Zhang,
to remember, man, Zhang is probably well past his best. He's 39 years old. And he's been fighting in them far-flung places against opponents that are probably not that good. So, you know what I mean? His ceiling is limited. But he saw that as an opportunity to gate crash the rankings, and he nearly took it. Like I said, to me, it was only his age, really. Because you could see him gassing, couldn't you? You could
I
actually
saw
see him in there.
Chisora call out Zhang after
That
that
would be a
fight,
fun
man.
fight, you know.
Boy,
Even though I
I
think
fear for
Derek will be
Chisora in that
retired.
fight. I fear for him in that fight, man.
Yeah. But you know what? That's the type of fight that if neither of them get knocked out in the first 5-6 rounds, you could see them literally just standing in the middle of the ring and just oh man, that would
I
be a
want to see
very
that.
entertaining fight, bro.
There's some big fights out there for
sure
Zhang,
because
man.
Derek has got the type of style that he could win a fight like that. Because, like I said, Zhang gas tank is quite compromised in it. You could see after about 6 rounds, man, he was blowing out his rear end.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he'd made such a good start that he was, you know what I mean? That made it so competitive because he'd drawn the sting out of Ergovic. You know what
Speaking
I mean?
of Hergovich, Obes is saying here, Bakoli and Hergovich. How about that?
Akoli or Bakoli?
Bakoli.
Oh, yeah. That's another potential AJ fight, isn't it?
Martin
Bakoli's
Bakoli.
coming off a great win against Tony Yoka, British-based fighter. I think that's an ideal opponent for AJ. And it wouldn't be an easy fight for him neither.
Yeah.
Now, that's it. You know what? How about that? That should be a matchmaker, man. Bakoli versus, I want to see that. Bakoli versus AJ at the O2.
It's not impossible. There's no way that couldn't happen. That could definitely happen.
Promotionally, could that happen? I mean, who's Bakoli with?
Is he with who's he with now? Is he with Wasserman or don't know. Someone will confirm in here.
Tony Yoka. He just basically put it on Tony Yoka, man. And Tony Yoka had pressure.
Not sure. Someone will confirm, I'm sure. But listen,
that's a hard fight though for AJ to make his ring return to. I don't think they'll put him in with somebody that tough. Like I said, you need to be a bit creative. Find him a guy that he can get out of there, but not ridiculously easy, but then not somebody that's gonna potentially give him a really, really hard night. Because you're still building the brand, didn't you? Even though he's coming off back-to-back losses. You got to build him back up again into the so-called superstar status. So the matchmaking is going to be crucial, I would suggest. Is Bakoli a little bit of a tough assignment for somebody that's trying to build his confidence back up? Probably yes, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they dig down the rankings, man, they can come up with somebody with half a name. You know what I mean? Maybe a guy was good a few years back, not at the same levels anymore. What about Oscar Rivas? Mind you, he's Bridgerweight now.
He's at Bridgerweight now, yeah. Well, listen, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here for today, man. We're gonna keep it to an hour. There are other post-fight videos out there. If you haven't watched it already, we got the immediate reaction on the channel, which was released yesterday. And yeah, we're gonna try and get another show in maybe this week, possibly Wednesday or Thursday. But yeah, had to do the show today, man. Get Bakoli's with Matchroom. Big up Daniel. But yeah, so that'll be easy to make. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up today, and we'll try and get another show in during the week. Laurie, do you want to say anything before we close out?
Yeah, just thanks for everybody for tuning in, man. Really appreciate the support. Let's get Daryl those watch hours he requires to get his videos monetized. And I'd just like to say as well, if there's any sound quality issues, apologies for that. We had a bit of problems setting up, and then I had a bit of noise next door at the start. I was trying to chastise a few people to keep quiet. So if that kind of interrupted your viewing somewhat, then I apologize. Circumstances beyond my control. But thanks for tuning in, man. Keep watching, keep supporting, like, share, subscribe, and speak to you very soon, hopefully.
We'll leave it there. Have a good evening, guys. We'll catch you all very soon.